Hello, hello. It is 11 o'clock on June 30th in steamy West Des Moines. We are full on summertime here, and hopefully wherever this meets you, wherever we're seeing you today, you're having a great summer experience as we get ready here for the 4th of July weekend and all the fun things that come with it. So the topic today is IRAs, individual retirement accounts. And many of us in the summer don't really feel like doing a whole lot of learning. I understand that and I get that. I thought it'd be a good time just for those that are interested to have a chance to learn more about how IRAs work, what the logistics of how to engage in your IRA, whether you're adding to it or taking money out of it, how the taxes work, just lots of different nuances to it. We're going to try to make this fun and interactive and bring you through. And this will be the first of a 3-part series. Today is just a lot of basics and some fun facts. And then we'll be moving on to some actual case studies and strategies, things that everybody can be thinking about in their own planning. And then we'll finish up from there with just some ways to maximize the IRA opportunity so that you're making the most of how all of these things work in your actual financial plan. So we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a poll today for those of you that are out there with us live. And it's focused on what you'd like the most help understanding today and as we're going through the series. So if you wouldn't mind answering, what we're looking at is I need the most help in understanding the following. The first would be Roth IRAs. The second is perhaps regular or traditional IRAs, and then taxes and how that impacts your Roth IRAs and your regular IRAs. And finally, then just how do I distribute my account in the most friendly way fashion. So I'm going to give everybody just a couple seconds here. Okay. Well, it looks like by far the most thing that everybody wants to talk about is distributing IRA accounts. So the first part of today's presentation is about contributions, how we contribute to our IRA accounts. The second half is about distributions. So you are in the right place. We'll also be talking about good old, I can never say it. Sorry, I'll slow down. Required minimum distributions and how all that fun stuff works. So all right, I'm going to get the presentation started here. The slides will come up and then I'll be in the right-hand corner. Logistically, the chat box is open. And so if you want to ask a question, then go ahead and throw that in the chat and we'll be able to see that and answer any questions along the way. But again, today's about just some basics and some fun facts. And so we'll get started here with just some questions that everybody seems to have when it comes to IRAs. So common questions include like, can I still contribute and how much based on my age, my income, all of those things? Which type of IRA is the right thing for me? Is it perhaps a Roth IRA or the traditional? If I need to take withdrawals, when do I need to do that? How much do I need to take? How does the taxes work when that happens? What happens to my IRAs if I happen to pass? Because that's a very important matter and one that's very different in how maybe your other investments in real estate are handled. The new tax laws. So right now we're in the midst of what we're calling Secure Act 2.0. I'm going to cover that throughout the series, but just to let you know, they're looking hard at advancing the required minimum. Here we go again. Required minimum distribution age from 72 to somewhere later than that. We've seen Iowa tax law change in reference to retirees and their distributions, and then lots of a myriad of other things if you inherit an IRA, things like that. So we'll have more detail and applicability with Secure Act 2.0. It hasn't passed yet. So what we know is kind of what's out there in the front and what is expected to go through, but still a lot of changes expected before that actually comes to fruition. And then how can I minimize my taxes? IRAs are interesting because they're one of the last few what I'll call tax bastions or ways that we can protect our money from taxes. And so understanding how that works can be very, very helpful in your tax planning, not just your IRA planning. So life has become more complicated. What I mean by this is that it used to be relatively easy to do retirement planning because in most cases, your company took care of it for you. So where you worked, when in many cases would have what was called a pension program. And in that program, they would set up a pool of money that they would contribute on your behalf as part of your benefit package. When you retired, you receive a monthly income from them. So my grandpa was an AT&T employee, old Ma Bell, for 40, 50 years. He had a steady income from them that came out every month that he had as long as he was alive. And then my grandma received some of it when he passed. And so it was Social Security, his pension, and he was set. Now those pensions have gone away. They became too expensive. So unless you work for the government or one of these holdout companies, I know Principal still has a pension, John Deere, some of these other companies, but they are really, really going away from it. And the reason is that people have been living longer. The plans have become way too expensive to maintain. And so what they're doing is kicking the responsibility back to all of us. And so when I say it's become more complicated, we've all had to be forced to become more educated if we want to succeed in retirement and live a life of dignity in retirement, because no one else is going to do it for us. Of course, Social Security is still there and still helpful, but it cannot be your only source of income if you're hoping to live well when you're retired. And so we've had to do more saving. We've had to do more investing. A lot of the risks to shift to all of us as employees and or investors outside of the employment hemisphere. And so it's more complicated and it requires more education. That's why I think doing some education pieces on retirement accounts and all that's so important. The other reason that it's more complicated and we can't just rely on Social Security is because of how long we're all expected to live. Many folks I meet with say there's no way I'm not going to make it to 90. I'll never make it to 80. X happened in my family, etc. But the simple fact is that at age 90, as you can see from this chart, there's a 1 in 2 chance if you're in a partnership with someone that one of you will live past age 90. And you can see even past 100 now is a 1 in 10 chance. So while what seemed an impossibility many, many years ago is a reality now. And I'll tell you in practice, I'm seeing many of my clients, and in particular my clients' parents, living much longer than they expected or perhaps that they planned for. So again, this part of the planning process is very, very important. All right, so some of you know I just came out with a book, Empty Nest, Full Pockets, where we explore the empty nest journey and how all that works. So once the kids leave, you finally do have a chance to save and accelerate your savings and or get engaged in your planning process. So hopefully as the kids grow, age out, they become on their own, independent, young adults, you don't have to support them as much. It gives you a good chance to throw the focus back on you because retirement is a reality no matter how you choose to peel it. I am seeing incredibly creative ways that people are addressing their retirements now. And that could be a topic for its own webinar. But for many cases, they're downshifting. They're trying a different mode of employment. They're opening their own business. They're doing something on the side that they really love that can produce some income. But you've got all these years of wisdom and skill that you've built up. And now you have a chance to use all that in the workplace and really accelerate your income. These can be great earning years. And I'm speaking of after the kids leave and now you're looking at the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is for you to prepare for retirement. This is a great time to save. And so knowing how to maximize the IRA hemisphere and the IRA world can be really helpful as a result. All right, so we're going to start with traditional IRAs and then we're going to talk about Roth IRAs. I'm just going to touch briefly on employer plans just so everybody knows how that works in these worlds. But the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA are completely different from the 401k world. So let's start with traditional IRAs. For many of these accounts, you may be able to add contributions to these plans, and those contributions may be tax deductible. We have to say the word may over and over again because it completely depends on your income. If you make too much money, you won't get any deduction for these. However, when it goes into the account, it grows in what's called a tax deferred manner. And all that means is that as it's growing, you're not paying taxes on that growth. So let's use a quick example. If you came to me and said, Matt, I want to buy 100 shares of Apple and I want to do it inside of a traditional IRA, I would say, okay, we'll do that. We buy these 100 shares, not a good example because it's over the IRA limit, but forgive me for that. So let's say it's $100 a share and you buy 100 of them for $10,000. As that Apple stock grows, so let's say it goes up to $15,000 over the next 5 years. All right, good investment. It's done well for us. Matt, sell it for me. I want to use that money for something else. If you do that inside of a traditional IRA, you will not be taxed on that capital gain until you actually take the money out and spend it. If you came to me and said, Matt, buy me 100 shares of Apple just in my name, and the same scenario happened, and I sold that stock and you made $5,000 on it, you would have what's called a long-term capital gain reportable in that year on your tax forms. So this allows you to defer that tax liability until you actually spend it and or need it. And so that's what makes this unique and somewhat advantageous, because those tax deferred earnings can compound and continue to grow very nicely over the years. When you do take money out of these, which we'll talk more about distributions, they generally are taxed or added to your income for that year. So right now in 2022, you can do $6,000 into a traditional IRA and another 1,000 if you're over 50. You need to have some sort of compensation, whether it's from a business or a W-2 employee, whatever the case may be. And there isn't any age limit. Beginning in 2020, they discontinued any age limits for those. So if the contributions may be deductible if you are, they're deductible unless you're covered by an employer plan that you're contributing to, or your income's above a certain threshold. And for many people, this is what happens: is you want to contribute to these, and you still can, but you're not going to get the tax deduction presently. I encourage you not to let that dissuade you, because you can still do these, get that tax deferred benefit. So while there's no benefit to you in the taxes today, there will be a long-term benefit from there. Okay. When we move on to the Roth, the big difference is how the taxes are treated. So like I said before, you may have a deduction on a traditional IRA and your earnings will grow tax deferred. With the Roth IRA, there is no present day advantage. You get no tax deduction for making the contribution. However, in that scenario, all of your taxes are tax free to you when you spend them. So in the same scenario where you've got 100 shares of Apple that you've purchased, it grows to 15,000. You sell that and make that profitable $5,000 gain, you will never be taxed on that inside of a Roth format. So the challenge for these is that, again, we have income limits. So if you make too much money, you can't contribute to a Roth IRA. And so that becomes frustrating for many people. They're like, this is just, I'm making too much. I've got no access to this. It's very frustrating. I get all that. But keep this on your radar, because at some point it may be applicable via a Roth conversion, IRA, and or a Roth 401k, which we'll touch on briefly. Okay, so the limits here, same as a traditional IRA, 6,000 and 7,000. You have to have some form of compensation, and there's no age limit. So if you're a single filer, the rule this year is that if you make 129,000 and less, you're able to contribute to the Roth, and for a couple, it's 204,000. These limits have improved dramatically, and I think they're going to go up even higher with inflation. So keep your eyes on this, because it may be that you weren't able to do a Roth IRA at some point, and now that you are. So make sure you check with your advisor and your CPA to see if it's something that you should explore. And then the next question is, well, at $7,000 a year, is that really going to make a difference to my financial plan? As you can see over time, it absolutely will. So let's take a quick example here. If you start with $7,000 a year and you invest that, so let's say you're 45 now, kids have left the house, you're getting ready to do your retirement planning and savings, and you do $7,000 a year. So you do $7,000 a year for the next 20 years until you're 65, ready for Medicare, perhaps retirement. All of a sudden, you have a nice bucket of tax-free money somewhere in the $175,000 vicinity if that money makes 6%. So if we go to historical returns in the market, that's not unachievable. That could be something that could absolutely happen. So it does make a difference. And as you can see, the longer that you go out, it can make a significant difference. Over 30 years, it's over $300,000 that you could have positioned in that account. And think of that. Let's say you have $1 million in a 401k or an IRA, and now you've got a $300,000 tax bucket that's tax-free. You can use a little bit of each over time and really keep your bracket lower. So it's a powerful planning tool. And then just briefly on employer-sponsored plans, these are available to everybody that if they're working at a company that has an employer-sponsored 401k plan is what they're called. These allow you to do savings in your account over time and somewhat of the same rules. So if you use the regular 401k plan, you're able to put money in before it's taxed. It will go tax deferred, just like it does in a traditional IRA. And then you're able to take that money out when you retire, take the money with you when you leave, et cetera. So those plans allow for $20,500 this year and up to $26,000 if you're over 50 via the catch-up contribution. The nice thing here is there's no income limits. Everybody can participate in these regardless of your income. And so your plan may have some limits and nuance to how much you can do, but in most cases, you can save more aggressively in these plans than you can in just regular IRAs. It's something that a lot of folks don't know about that's kind of newer on the landscape in the last 5 years is Roth 401ks. So for all of you that make too much money that you can't contribute to a Roth IRA, those rules don't apply to a Roth 401k as far as income goes. So here you can save post-tax. So you'll be taxed on the money today from your income. That money then goes to work in mutual funds or whatever your plan has set up. And all of that money will then be tax-free to you when you retire. So for many of us, it can be a way to really complement if we've got a large traditional 401k balance. Adding some Roth can do the same thing that I just illustrated, where you've got a tax-free bucket of money down the road. So regardless of your age, there's probably some suitability for this in your plan. And if you're younger, this is an area that you should be putting all of your money into. So if you're just getting started in your career or you're just getting going, they give you a great opportunity to save tax-free for the entirety of your retirement, something that wasn't available to all of us when we started our careers. So please ask your employer about these and make sure you're taking advantage of it if possible. All right. So we've been going for about 15 minutes. They say the average attention span is about that time. So I want to take just a really quick little break here before we go on to more about the distribution side of IRAs and share a little video with you that I found that I thought was really funny. And so it's something that former President Barack Obama put together. So if I put a disclosure right here, this isn't a political thing at all. It's just kind of a humorous thing that he did when he knew he was going to be leaving the White House. He made a little video about how he wanted to spend his retirement. And so I thought this was pretty funny. He kind of presented it at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I thought I'd share it with you. We could take a quick break here. Then we'll dive into distributions, and then we'll be able to wrap this up within by the half hour. So here we go.
But our decision has actually presented a bit of a dilemma because traditionally presidents don't stick around after they're done. And it's something that I've been brooding about a little bit. Take a look.
The Obamas are staying in D.C. for 2 years after the president leaves office.
He's about to go from commander-in-chief to couch commander.
You checked out. What am I going to do in D.C. for 2 years?
Got a real dilemma, Mr. President.
I can't go every day, can I?
Which you like better, these or these?
Joe, they're the same.
They capture different moods.
Joe, I need some focus here.
Commoner during aviator time, thinks everything.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said, Mr. President, you have to be practical. And look, you can drive again. You're going to need a license. You love sports. Why don't you volunteer to work with one of the teams around here?
Is this the Washington Wizards? I understand you're looking for some coaching help. Let's just say I coached my daughter's team a few times. Hello. Hello.
44.
Finally. So I'm going to be in D.C. for a while, and I thought I'd take up driving again.
What's the name?
Barack Hussein Obama.
Well, since you don't have a driver's license, you're going to need a first.
Michelle Obama in hot water after posting this video earlier today.
Obamacare is great, and it's really working. Sign up now.
No?
No.
Did you get a lot of views?
Honey, enough. Why don't you just talk to somebody who's been through this? I gotta go to Soul Cycle.
She's right. I know who I need to talk to. Hey. It's Barack. Listen, can we get together? Now that is a great one. Yeah. So, you got any advice? So now you want my advice? First, stop sending me all these LinkedIn requests. And second, here's the beauty of this whole thing. You've got all the time in the world to figure this out. You can just be you for a while. If you know how to do that again. So I can just be me. And I can wear my mom jeans in peace. I hate these tight jeans. Good. Yesterday, I had a beer at 11:30 in the morning. And you know. Look here.
His 347th round of golf for the year, and it's totally great. And Gloria, not a problem for Eddie.
I can't think of a reason to care, Wolf. And believe me, I've tried.
There you go.
Okay, so just a little fun there along the way. So when we think about IRAs, we're thinking about retirement. So for a lot of us, it's a question of what are we going to do when we retire? And so I don't know if he gave you any good ideas there, but there are certainly some ideas to share. So, all right, let's get back to it here. Okay, so we talked about retirement and 401k plans. Many folks are somewhat intimidated by using a retirement plan from their company because they feel like they're going to lose the money. But as you can see, there are a lot of different options for you. You can leave your money there. You can roll it over. You can convert it to a Roth. We're going to talk more about Roth conversions in our second session on this, but it's a powerful tool that many of us can use that if you weren't able to take advantage of Roths earlier in your career or at all through your employer for whatever reason, that might be available to you. So stay tuned for more about that. All right, when money comes out of your 401k or your IRA and it's not a Roth, you need to get a feel for how that's going to work because it's going to be taxed at your ordinary income rate or whatever your income tax bracket is. So you can see here as an example, if you're making as a married couple between 180 and 340,000 and you make a retirement distribution, barring any deductions, things like that, if this is your modified adjusted gross income, you're going to pay about 24% in taxes. So really just something to keep on your radar because you've been given the beauty of this tax deferred benefit over time, but then eventually they are going to want their tax money back. And so this is how they collect that over time when you're actually in retirement. All right, so there's a few side effects when you begin taking money out of your accounts that you need to be aware of. There's a 3.8% surtax on net investment income if that gets too high. There's a number of phase outs and deductions. For those of you that are on Medicare, taking a lot out of your IRA can increase your Medicare B premiums because you're increasing your income. The amount of your Social Security that's taxable could be impacted by it. Whether your child receives financial aid. So if you're taking a lot from an IRA, increasing your income, you apply them for financial aid through the FAFSA form. You can see that all of a sudden maybe your aid chances have been limited because you've increased your income too much from these distributions. And you might be not eligible for a Roth because you've taken too much out of your tradition. So again, planning techniques, things to think about before you move forward. All right, we're going to finish up here with required minimum distributions. I said it so easy that time. And maybe my tongue has got loosened up from all this chatting. So anyway, these are when it's time to pay the piper is the best way to explain required minimum distributions. So what they are is when you turn right now the age of 72, the IRS forces you to take money out of your IRA accounts, whether they are old 401k plans, traditional IRAs, you name it. They force that money out so that they can begin to collect taxes on it. So they've given you this tax deferred benefit over a multitude of years. And now they want you to slowly, ever so slowly, take that money out and pay them taxes. So they've allowed you to keep that money tax deferred and they've kept it off your tax returns, but it can't be avoided forever. So for IRAs, they begin at age 72. And for most plans, they're also age 72. Part of the new Secure Act is to limit the penalty amounts if you miss this for some reason. But as it stands today, 50% is your penalty. So if you're supposed to take out $10,000 and you forgot, or you didn't complete it by the time that you were supposed to, you can be penalized 50% on your return. So they're serious about this. And it's something that you have to pay attention to. Good advisors will always proactively let their clients know that it's time to take your required distribution and do all that we can to help make that process easy. But all of us, as we're looking at our planning, need to keep that age 72 in mind. So again, Secure Act 2.0 is looking to extend this age to potentially 75, but right now, as it stands, it's age 72. Here's just a little chart if you're wondering what your required distribution might be. So it's based on from these ages and then what your life expectancy is. And so they use this table to, and they use your prior year-end balance to determine when, or the amount, that you have to take out. I always tell folks to plan around 3 to 4% of the balance. And then those amounts, if the IRAs have grown like they have in the last 10 to 15 years, those amounts continue to grow as you age as well. So just be aware that these are out there and get a feel for what they might be through your financial planning process. So here you can see the percentages. So like I said, somewhere between 3 and 4% early on. It then accelerates as you get older because they're basing it on your life expectancy. So as we get into our 80s and 90s, they want more of this money. So Required minimum distributions are just part of the deal, a part of saving for retirement. Roth conversions, Roth IRAs don't have these required distribution rules. So once again, a great planning technique. If you're looking to moderate this or lower this amount that you have to take, Roth can be a great way to counteract that. So there's a few mistakes that get made here. So aggregating your RMDs between different types of accounts. So after-tax accounts combined with IRA accounts, potentially combined with Roth accounts, can make it very confusing, and you could miss something. If you have IRAs at lots of different providers, old 401k plans, once again, everybody's got to participate. The full amount is what matters. So figuring out what that is, having an advisor help you with that so that you can take out the proper amount at the right time is very, very important. Aggregating your RMDs between spouses. So here where you're saying, well, they're taking this amount, surely that will cover my amount. That's not how it works. This is an individual exercise. And so each of you have to figure out what your required minimum distribution are if you're filing jointly or if you're even filing separately. This is an exercise that goes in solo. A lot of people get confused because many of their accounts are joint with their spouse or partner, but IRAs, that's not the way that they work. It's driven by your Social Security number, and it's an individual retirement account. And the same thing applies to Roth, not for RMDs, but for titling. And then forgetting to take your RMD and facing that 50% penalty is obviously one of the big mistakes we really want to avoid. All right, so we're coming up at the end of the half hour. I sure appreciate everybody joining me today. So end of the last Thursday of every month is when we're going to do these. As I mentioned, the next one is going to be on strategies for success, and I'll be doing actual case studies of sample clients, sample individuals or couples, and how they're maximizing IRAs. And then we'll go even deeper into that to maximize the long-term value of IRA planning at our last session. So if you sign up for this first one, you'll automatically be signed up for the rest of them. So good news there. I do have a handout on essential tax tips that I'd like to give everybody. If you would like a copy of this, all I need you to do is email Lisa at pfwplanning.com, and she will get that out to you right away. Down the road, as this thing progresses, we'll also be posting this inside the blog section of our website, which is pfwplanning.com, where we have more information about our upcoming events, our firm in general, and how we can help with tax planning and IRA planning in particular. So take a look at all of that. I sure appreciate everybody joining us today and being part of our first IRA strategy session. I sure welcome any questions or comments. Feedback is always very, very welcome. So please reach out to me if you have anything in particular. But more than anything, enjoy your 4th of July weekend. We've got a long weekend coming up. Please be safe and have a great time with your families. And I look forward to talking to everybody real soon. Thanks so much.